Hello and welcome to episode 5 of my Cosmonaut developer commentary. Today I will be talking over the chapter Caverns, which was initially made in August of 2018. So first off, this is a very common trope we see in video games where the player's on an elevator and the elevator conveniently breaks as they get further down, and that's what we've done here. And obviously, thankfully, there was this water here, which I did make deeper after the first couple of versions, so no one kind of died, because quite a few people would fall onto, the control panel or whatnot. So we have this lobby area. I like to think of this as kind of a lobby area that has multiple purposes. So I've added these shakes in just as kind of an environmental thing to notice. The place is shaking, and that will come into more prominence later on in the map. So I've put this crate here to stop the player moving around there. We all know about that now. I've kind of gone over it to death, and I have created two different lighting colours to create some contrast. So we've got the blue over here and the yellowish, I'll call it yellow just for the sake of the video, over here. So the blue represents the area in which you cannot go. This is the main chamber. You will be able to go here, but much later on. So I wanted the player to look out onto this area. Now, this map was designed with the storyline I had written in mind, which was all of the different citizens going with you across the wasteland to the rocket. And at this point we were still following a companion that I had planned, and they were going to run out of a door over there and call the elevator and go up, and we'd be able to see that, so we'd know where they were basically. But I obviously cut that, so now this place just serves as a place to foreshadow where you are going to be. And then this area is working out what's going on basically. So this door is locked. It's got a handle on it because you can actually come back round the other side. It's not just a decoration door. But I have forgotten to change these doors in a few places. And the generator, I've tried to make it obvious that it's linked to both the door and this area up here, and you can get good looking, or kind of a good look into that area by jumping on that. The combine soldiers were placed to give the impression that there's been some kind of struggle down here and they'd not won. And obviously this is not a combine soldier level, this is an antlion level. I wanted to change things up at this point because you'd been fighting Metro Cops and combine soldiers throughout the mod so far, so now it's time to change things up. For this puzzle I had to kind of draw attention to this building and highlight it, so I did that by putting ammo in, which you can, I think, just grab from here with the I kind of get lost there. But I did this thing where you can shoot this thing if you want, or you can punt it with the gravity gun, and I got told to change it to wood so you can punt it as well as grab it, but either way that's how it's done. And I also had to draw the player's attention to up there, so I've used the third colour in this area and it's red, so now the player can see, or it's different, so it's more noticeable. But quite a few people got stuck on this area, and I was possibly going to put like a wooden bar, but I didn't bother. So this one's fairly simple. It's just a way of interacting to create an interesting experience, and that's what this is basically. And I forgot to change some of these doors so they don't open. I was supposed to change them because on 99% of the doors in this mod, the doors are all just brushes with no handles because you can't access them, and you know, that's how it was done. But I did forget to change one or two of them. So going into this room, this is just a fairly generic room. There's nothing in here. Now I had this guy falling, both to highlight the console to kind of make it seen, even though I've tried to put it directly in front, but also to give a chance for the player to look up, to kind of draw the attention that he must have fallen from somewhere. The player's more likely to look up. And I've heard that if you have a boring room, one way to make it more interesting visually is to build it up, to kind of keep extending it up. And the good thing about this is we're underground. We've got, you know, there's no parts of the level above this area that could be obstructed, so I could easily just build this up as far as I could and make it look messy, and that kind of makes the room more interesting. And then I've put the window here so you can see what you're doing, because it's always good to give a visual on what you've achieved. So that's both the generator with the smoke and the door as well. And then this door you can go back a slightly quicker way, which is here. So it's kind of a loop. It makes it more interesting. Initially in this area, you met a Vortigaunt who, you know, was stuck down here, and this Vortigaunt was going to point out these, you know, antline thumper things, and give a bit of dialogue about what the Combine were doing, and they were doing something quite mysterious down here, and then you as the player would move on your way, and the Vortigaunt would stay here. So, to pay tribute to the Vortigaunt that was never added, I added some of these guys in. Just makes it a bit more mysterious. It doesn't mean anything, there's no story behind it, as is with most things in this mod. But that's what this area was, so there's some stuff to find, and then you can push on. So this area was a lot different as well, where there was a bright spotlight. In fact, I think this is it, and it was shining on these things, and you would walk around there, and these things would cut out, because that's what I'm kind of counting on, is the player feeling safe around these things. It's like, oh, the outlines are never going to come as long as these things here, so we'll be safe walking through here. And then the player would step out, and it still does what I wanted it to, it's just that the light doesn't go out. I've put a lot of fences here to stop the area being a clear run. So you can't just run from the start all the way through the room. You've actually got to weave in and out, and if you go that way where you get caught with this fence, if you go that way you've got to move all the way around. And that's what I've done. I've also kind of cut the ceiling out as if the Combine placed this here and had to move it. You've got to duck under here to make it not as easy to you know, just walk in there. And then we're at our first cave section, or the main cave section. This is the top of it. Again, another shake to kind of just create an atmosphere. This is one of these other tropes, similar to the elevator at the beginning. It's the player thinks they're safe when they're going down here, and then the floor falls out from beneath them. There we go. And then the player can behold the vastness of this cave. It's not actually that big. And that's the first time you meet the acid line, which is kind of very It's not that interesting encounter, but it's a lot more interesting because of the environment. So I've used this kind of blue light because I was inspired by Dear Esther, which in the cave section there was this very bluish, distinctive, memorable light. So I kind of wanted my caves to look like that. So I kind of put a lot of the brightness on the ceiling here, so it makes the ceiling more distinctive, which builds the cave out, because if it wasn't there, it wouldn't feel as big and as grand. And the player's less likely to look up there. And we've also got all of these stalagmites and stalactites, as you can, there's a lot of them, and hammer that you can use to make the area look interesting. I put a grub here so he'd be like making noises, so if the player was struggling for the way out, they would be able to see him, and the blue distinctive light on ground level also serves the same purpose. And now we come to a kind of boss fight with the Antlion Guardian. And I initially removed this. This was in before. And then I removed the fight. And then I removed an other boss fight later on that was going to be more interesting. So then I had to add this one back in. And the cave's not very well built for it. And I'll show you what I mean. But I put that crate there to slow the player down. So then you meet that guy and yeah. And I've put a lot of props down, and they don't really make sense from a real perspective, obviously. It's like, well, what would barrels be doing down here and whatnot? But they're all just, it's just gameplay focused. And there's quite a lot of them. There's more than, if you look around. And we've also got a lot of the weapons. Now let's see if he gets stuck, because often he'll get completely stuck here. Is he stuck? I think he is. So if I was doing this bit again, I'd make this cave much bigger, a much bigger arena, because as you see, it's very, very, very small. There's just health here again, because it's the battle's not that easy with the small space, and I didn't want players becoming frustrated. I did add things like this metal thing here, so if the player was to back down, they could get it. And mostly the Antlion Guardian doesn't follow you in here, although sometimes he does. So I kind of, yeah, it's all a bit botched, really. But that leads us up to the main door. Now, for those players who like to have a little bit of a hunt around, you can actually make it up here to find health and ammo, which I always like to reward that. Players who kind of go above and beyond, in this case quite literally, and they get rewarded for that. We've got the ye olde valve and door or gate puzzle, which isn't a puzzle, it's just an obstruction to force interaction, and also it acts as a point of no return. And instead of just having the valve to turn here, I've put it in a kind of more interesting place where you can just grab it. I completely messed that up, that's alright. And as I said, it's a point of no return, so if you let go of the door, it will close, and that will lock you out of the cave. And I kind of wish that cave section had been longer, but it took quite a while to do that. I think out of all the maps to initially make, this one was the longest to build initially. Obviously I went back and did them all. Now, I don't think he can shoot me from here. Yeah. What I've done is I've added this bug here, this grub, to draw attention to the hole here, which is the way out. Now, it used to be a cave in there, so I've kind of changed it a lot. And I might show you that in a later video. But, yeah, it was just kind of like, this area is where you want to go, but it's blocked up, so you need to go all the way around. Here's the counterweight puzzle, the obligatory counterweight puzzle you've got to include in your mod. And I put the battery through there to show that this is a door, and you will be able to move through there. One of the mistakes I made initially was I put a window here. It was just a small window, and yeah, that was it. There was a window, and this here with the rope was not present. So the rest of it's the same. The only things I've changed is the breakage and the fence, and quite a few players came into this area and thought this was an elevator, so they would do everything in their power to, you know, make this go down. And obviously all it takes is, I think, 2 of these things. You pull it, and then the door goes up. But some thought that they had to make this go lower, so they were putting all sorts of things and pulling the lever and getting frustrated. It wasn't clear that this door was what they were doing here. So that's why I added a fence and a noise to clearly see what they were doing, and also the breakage up here so you could see the rope. Now, it's not the same kind of rope. I think it is. I think it's just a bug with it for some reason, but I checked and it is definitely the same style of rope. So yeah, if I could fix that, I would. Yeah, like there, I think it's going dark. It's the same there. And then just when you're going to escape this section, I've added in this guy. He's coming round. And I had to make these fences non-solid so the acid from the acid line could pass through. So if the player decides to go straight for the vent, I guess, they could still get a chance of, you know, getting caught by the acid. And obviously I've put clips and whatnot here and everything to stop everything going through except the acid. And then this bit's definitely a joining area. I made it after I removed an antlion grub, or rather a grub bug cave section with the yellow kind of wall texture. I'll show you it maybe another time, and it was really nice but pointless. This just gets you straight up to where you need to go instantly. This room initially contained a Combine advisor in a pod, and this is what the Combine would be doing down here. They'd be kind of keeping their advisor pod safe. And I planned the battle around here. That's why there's a hole in the ceiling, because the advisor would smash through the hole and you'd fight in the upper chamber. But it was very hard to incorporate. I kind of just gave up and ended up removing it and just replaced it with this rocket screen instead. And it was probably the best idea that I cut, and you'd be fighting the advisor, it'd be throwing things at you, and you'd be taking cover and whatnot. Yes, really, it's really disappointing. There used to be a room in here, boiler room. I removed it because I don't want the player lingering in this area too long. This area is one of the most pointless areas of the mod. It's fairly boring. All you're doing is walking up the stairs. There's nothing to do, barely anything to see. I added some interesting things here, but I didn't want the player hanging around here any longer. I just wanted them to move through, so that's why I removed that room. You know, not all of the changes I made weren't pointless. In fact, none of them were pointless. They all had some meaning to it, even if I didn't justify them in like the patch notes. Now we are in the main chamber. Well, look at that. And the antlines kind of attack you at different paces. I made this room deliberately difficult to navigate, so I've put this wooden board here. The exit to the rooms in that corner. I put these wooden items here. There's also a giant hole, and these barriers also serve as a obstruction. So the player's going to subconsciously move around this area, and these barnacles don't really pose much of a threat. They're just there for the player to watch out for. There's a room in here that you can take cover from the antlines if you so wish. But yeah, this area, again, it was designed for the advisor battle. It was designed for the advisor to be in the middle of the chamber and you to be moving around these areas whilst the advisor kind of fired things at you. Coming into this house, I wanted to make it clear that the way up was above you, obviously. So I've broken up the floor here so that you can see it as soon as you come in, to kind of give you a hint that there's something up here. And I've also put this this guy up here so the player notices. And when they get to this area and there's nothing to find, they're more likely to look behind them. And these windows were designed for the advisor battle, so you could see him there. This is the introduction. You can see where you were. Obviously, it's just nice to see back, but obviously these fences are more used for when you're on the other side to look into this area. Now we come to the elevator finale, which I quite like. Even though something else was planned, which was the advisor, I think this didn't turn out too bad. The issue was, by the time I'd made this, and then removed the advisor, this platform was far too small. And I initially had the door here where the antlines couldn't come through the door when they attacked you. So what me and Paradise did, Paradise suggested it, is that you make it, you know, a wider door with no actual physical door. So whether or not you're in here or not, these guys, you know, the guys will attack you. So obviously this one's quite simple. You push the button and wait for it to descend. It's been done already in Half-Life 2. And also on this side you can actually go up here, which I actually quite like, and I wish I had utilised it more. And as you hear, the music stops more or less when the elevator's down. I did that deliberately to where, yeah, so the player gets more of an idea. And this is one of these areas where you're still in danger, but you're not really in danger. I mean, I think he can still hit you from up here, but it's kind of that scene from Half-Life 2 Episode 2 when the Vortigo tells you to take the elevator up. That's kind of what that's a tribute to. And then I'll save it while it's being auto-saved and it will crash. And that's kind of the end of the battle, but now we've got probably my favourite section. So from here until the start of the next map, this is kind of my favourite section of the mod, even though it's not very special. But what I've done is, as soon as the player drops out here, the rocks fall, and sometimes the player gets hit by those rocks, but that's just to draw attention to the middle area here with the minecart. There is stuff to find, and yeah, batteries and stuff, and the player, it's up to the player when they can start this. So the player can actually pull the lever, but it won't move until the player climbs in it. With this minecart section, there was a few options that I could do. So the first idea was that there would be obstacles in the way and the player would have to duck. And if the player didn't duck and they got hit by the obstacle, that would take health off. And by the end, the player would almost, you know, if they hadn't ducked at all, they would be punished. There would be no health, of course. The next option was to have a battle, so have like a lot of shooting and acid lions, you know, bombarding you with their spit. And they were kind of the two main options, but in the end, I just wanted the player, to enjoy this. I just wanted it to be kind of a scenic change from fighting antlions and having to think. But I made it so that the impression's still there. So if the player wants to shoot the antlions, they can. If the player wants to duck in some of the lower sections, they can as well. That's kind of what I have done. So the player's not in any danger at all. So we're going to climb in here, and obviously we've pulled the lever already, so it's going to start moving forward. And this is definitely a visual thing, and I've got the shaking, you know, the rumbles, things falling, the sounds, and he's going to get crushed. And again, you can shoot these guys if you want, they don't attack you, like there's no acid lines. You can duck here if you so wished, but you're never going to take damage. It's just all a very visual thing. You know, and you're getting faster and faster just to build up the tension. That's all this is. It's not anything special. Alright, that is the end of episode 5 of my Cosmonaut developer commentary. If you like the video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos. I'll see you next time.